Welcome everybody to the seasonal diet, eating what our ancestors ate when they ate it, like we were evolved to do. Champignons, otherwise known as Agaricus bisporus. Continuing mushroom week today with some of the top mushrooms that are native to Europe. Now this one, the champignon, this is the first one that comes to mind when most of you think about mushrooms because it's probably the one you see most common in your supermarkets. This is also called the common mushroom, or simply champignon, which just means mushroom in French. But why? Why do we call this one the basic standard mushroom when there are really tens of thousands of different types of mushrooms? Why does this one get the generic name? Well, because first, this was one of the first cultivated mushrooms, and definitely on the widest scale. Of course, mushrooms and other types of fungus are age-old. They grew wild probably before any other type of life on this planet. But funny enough, mushrooms and fungus, even though they are the oldest types of edible foods, they were some of the latest cultivated foods. Just like I spoke about in my mushroom history video earlier in the week, the champignon was one of the first mushrooms to be cultivated by humans, at least in Europe. You know, it grows wild in cool grasslands of Europe, but also in North America. But in 1700s and even 1600s, humans figured out that they could grow these themselves in their gardens. And this was actually done in France first, hence the name champignon, and then it slowly spread to the rest of the world when we had this kind of growth, this renaissance of French food being exported everywhere. So now, it's our most common mushroom in the West, at least. It's cultivated in over 70 countries and accounts for 90% of the mushrooms sold in the West, actually. And it's for good reason. This is one of the easiest ones to cultivate, and they are actually super nutritious pound for pound. They have a lot of calories, which would have been very valuable for humans of ancient times and in times of famine or in certain times of year. But mushrooms also have many vital nutrients, especially the B vitamins and the minerals. And guys, this is why it's so important if you are vegetarian or vegan. It's so important to eat a good amount of mushrooms. You know, some of the vitamins and minerals that you are going to be missing if you don't eat meat or animal products, those things can be found in mushrooms. And the standard champignon is the cheapest and most widely available mushroom for most of you, I'm assuming, where you live and finding in your grocery store. So these are definitely a must for vegetarians to get these nutrients to them in the most cost-effective way possible, because you don't want to be spending 10 times the price on some shiitake or some chanterelles or something like that. But everyone else should be eating these too, not just the vegetarians. They are in top season right now in the fall, when they're growing wild, so our ancestors would have had these in our diet right now, especially in the north of Europe. But they are also growing in the spring in many places in the world too, and this is even more important for us people that do eat meat, because springtime is when our ancestors would have cut down their meat consumption to very, very low. So we make up for that with the champignons and other mushrooms that would be growing early in the year, actually. And of course, mushrooms are fairly easy to dry, and our ancestors would have been doing this as well for thousands of years, and harvesting them in the fall to eat them and dry them all throughout the winter. But remember, before about 200 or 300 years ago in Europe, mushrooms would have been something that were foraged wild instead of picked from their garden. So just keep that in mind if you are trying to recreate the frequency that they would have eaten the mushrooms. But long story short, yes, the champignon is in our seasonal diet, and mainly in the fall and throughout the winter and spring.